Welcome to Psychic Social, brought to you by psychic.co.uk.
On this episode of Psychic Social.
And then she stops in mid-sentence and I get goosebumps. Her face just changed and she was looking right behind me and I got scared. I'm not going to lie. And I looked at her. I was like, what are you looking at? And she was like, I'm looking at the three angels that are standing behind you.
Welcome to Psychic Social with me, Oliver Duke, the podcast that explores all things from the psychic and spiritual perspectives, including interviews with famous psychic practitioners, discussions about the afterlife, the paranormal, and much more. So relax and enjoy the show. Today's guest is a psychic medium who provides spiritual and metaphysical services to those in need of guidance in their lives. He passes along ancient wisdom to guide and mentor people for them to achieve true spiritual enlightenment. Now, our guest prides himself on giving the truth and complete honesty, and that although the truth may hurt or be uncomfortable sometimes, he sees it as crucial to his client's progression, be it spiritually or mentally. So we'd like to give a very warm welcome to the show from Los Angeles, Chris Medina. Chris, a very warm welcome to Psychic Social. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I was really excited to do this interview. Anytime I get a chance to speak to people overseas, I'm all about that. So thank you for thinking of me and having me on.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on, and we always love having guests from the States, so it's great to have you here. Now, can you tell us, with the current lockdown situation happening all over the world, what have you kind of been doing to stay positive and keep positive vibes going over there?
Oh my God, I got my work cut out for me. I have actually, believe it or not, during this pandemic, I've actually been really, really busy doing phone sessions. I usually, if you're in the Los Angeles area, I'll usually go out to you and visit you and do an in-person session. Or if you live out of state, we can do a phone call or Skype session like we're doing right now. So this has really, really kind of increased my business by like 30 to 40%, being able to give phone readings here. People are in dire need of it. They're so scared. They're not sure what's coming up, what they should be doing, what they should be preparing for. Everyone's kind of like having a hard time dealing with going within and being by themselves. So I've been doing the cleanup work, kind of calming the minds down of people, getting them back in their zone, kind of giving them things to look forward to, but also reminding them of who they are and to stay strong, to stay sane and stay positive during this time. So I would love to say that I've been doing a lot of reflecting and doing a lot of me here, but at the same time, like I said, I've been busy helping other people, at the same time taking in what I'm doing. And I always tell people that every time I do a reading with somebody, there's always a lesson to be learned on my end. It's never just me giving the reading and then kind of sending them on their way here. There's so much that I learn from each individual reading that I give here that mirror reflects back to me. So at the same time, while I'm helping healing, I'm also going within and looking at what's going on in the world as a collective and as a whole. So it's kind of like I would say an interesting exchange of services between me and the clients.
Right, great. And obviously, you just mentioned that you're doing a lot more kind of remote work as well. What's the proportion between sort of audio and video? Are you doing a lot of video chats like Zoom and Skype and stuff like that, or is it mainly kind of audio?
It's mainly kind of audio, unless you live out of the U.S. where it would require a Skype call where I can't call you directly, and people, want the ability to be able to see me and we chat back and forth. But for the most part, it's just been over the phone. Okay,
great. That's great stuff. Now, we want to move on into the show now, if we could. Could you take us back to the beginning? How did you become a psychic? How did the gift come to you? Was it passed down by a family member, or was it coming to you at a young age?
Yeah, it actually, it's a combination of both. I love to say that I was born with this ability here. I don't know anything else other than this ability here. And my dad's side of the family is Apache Indian. So they have, whether they choose to realize, believe, or want to even get into that, they're very intuitive, very psychic. My dad is a natural born medium. It's so funny because he's a biker. I grew up on Harley Davidson, and my dad, being around bikers and that sort of lifestyle, lifestyle here. My dad is very much that kind of like big guy type of look here, but when it comes to the ability, he's extremely nervous and scared with it. But yeah, I feel like it's been passed down. His mother has it, his brother has it. Mostly everybody on his side of the family has the ability in some way, shape, or form. I was able to take it and kind of run with it. So when people ask, how did this come in? I don't know anything else other than this. It's like I think I told you at the very beginning here. It's like having a second set of parents here. It's like I know. I don't see them. I don't hear voices. It's just thoughts and words implanted in me. And again, like I said, it comes so natural. I don't know anything else other than what I've been doing my whole life. But if you were to go back and ask me, did you always call yourself a psychic? No, I didn't actually. I didn't start calling myself a psychic medium until 2014. Because that's when I really, really came into what I was doing here. That's when everything shifted. I used to work in the insurance industry for about 20 years. I had a normal everyday job, a normal everyday life. I had 2 kids that I was raising and taking care of. And then all of a sudden, in 2014, the things started to shift. I had a conversation with my guides at a very young age. I suffered from asthma, and I was in and out of the hospital from the age of 2 years old all the way up until my preteens. And I remember vividly sitting in the hospital room. Back then, I'm pretty old. They used to put us in plastic bubbles with oxygen to kind of help you breathe better when you have asthma. Mm-hmm. And I was really, really, really sick and really, really weak at that time. And I remember telling my guides, because I could feel them there talking to me, telling them that I'm not afraid anymore, that I can let go and I could die, that I'm not scared. I just don't feel good. And then this voice, I know it sounds a little crazy, but a voice came in and said, no, that's not going to happen. You're here for something different. We will let you know when that time comes. You need to get better. Go to sleep. And so I fell asleep, and I'd love to say that I was miraculously cured, but no, I ended up again suffering with asthma up until my preteens. And then fast forward all the way into 2014 is when my guides came and said, "Are you ready for this change here? It's time." And I said, you have to understand something. During this time, life had already came in. Like I said, I had 2 kids. A lot of things were changing here. I was working a job where I was making really, really good money. And I was like, you're nuts. Like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to quit this here. I like the way things are going. And my guide said, if you try to fight this, push will come to shove, and you know what will happen. So they had reminded me, start making your arrangements here and getting things in order, because things are going to change. And within a couple days after that message, my life was completely changed. That job came to an immediate halt. There was a bad situation that took place there that forced me out of it. And I to be honest, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I told my guides, I said, I hope this is the right thing here. And they had reminded me of all the different times that they had come to me to speak to me, to tell me, to prepare me for things. And they were reminding me, this is just another one of those things. Have faith. And they told me, go to sleep again. And I fell asleep. And again, I know this sounds crazy from the outside perspective, but they showed me this big white owl that flew right into my face. This is the vision that I had, and had a gold face. And they told me everything's going to be okay. And from that point forward is when this new identity, this new new job that I have here, we're bringing my ability into the public world here and helping people out really came into fruition. I told Jay, who is my business partner, my best friend, my manager now, he had asked, what are we going to do? And I said, they want me to go full blown with this. They want me to start introducing this to the world here and start helping people. I said, so find anybody out there that wants a psychic reading, a medium reading, get on radio shows, television. And from there on, Oliver, I swear to you, everything just kind of fell downhill from there and just aligned. Mm-hmm. And I haven't looked back.
Well, that sounds amazing how they took you onto that path. They sort of guided you onto that path away from what you were doing, and that took you in that direction. You mentioned obviously a bit earlier about your father, about your dad. What was it like growing up with him? I take it he was a practicing medium, or was he not? And what was it like growing up with him, having that gift and being around him with that gift?
My dad, I always say, it's funny, and people think I joke about this, and I'm halfway joking and I'm halfway being serious about it. I know that my parents are my parents. I've always, especially my father, there's a very karmic connection that I have with him. I trust him like I trust nobody else. If there's one person that I can always go to back me up or to take care of things, it would be my dad. I've always, even at a young age, for whatever reason, I felt karmically connected and trusted him. But his way of growing up, the Native Native American side, we always get a bad rap because there's a lot of alcoholism. There's a lot of, really, physical stuff that goes on in households like that. And my dad grew up around that. So he used a lot of his ability as a defense mechanism, very much the way that I did growing up. I was very much bullied. I moved into a city where it was predominantly white. I was the first, one of the first ethnic people that went to the school there and got a lot of bullying, a lot of stuff like that happening to me. So, I learned from my father. My father would always tell me, take a real good look at who they are and look at them. And I would always remember my dad telling me this growing up here. When you look at them, what do you see? And I don't remember this, but he would actually train me as a kid. He would have me give readings to his friends. And you're talking about grown men that are smoking weed, that are bikers, that are coming in, doing bad things here. They're all inside the house. I'm sitting there as like a 4-year-old kid going in a circle reading them. So my dad was, to answer your question, my dad really, really helped develop my ability without going too overboard with it and really using me to rely on myself and what I get here and processing it in my own way. So I'd love to say that he was, that he accepts his ability, but at the same time, he's very much afraid of it. This is something where he sees more than he wants to see when it comes to the dead. He's a lot more medium than he is psychic. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? He's able to see things rather than get hits, and with the things that he sees, I mean, I have to give it to him. Some of the stuff that he's seen, I wouldn't want to see. So yeah, that's my main source as far as having that type of coaching, if you will, here. It was more of my guides, but my dad really made, really wanted me to see that there was nothing wrong with what I was doing, not to be afraid of it here and actually embrace it.
It's interesting to hear that. And he sounds like a great mentor to you growing up as well. Now, we'll move on to the next question, if we can. Can you tell us more about the term you used on your website and you use about second sight and what that means for you as a medium?
Second sight is having the ability to see a second vision from your everyday way of your everyday eyes, your normal eyes here. So that would, to me, second sight is bringing in a high level of intuition, such as psychic ability, mediumship abilities, being able to pick up. I'm not familiar with all the terms here, but being able to hear things that you don't normally hear with your everyday ears here. So having a second way of looking at things. Does that make sense?
So sort of clairaudiently, you mean something like that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, just the listeners would like to obviously hear that and understand what that meant. So obviously, we've been hearing about your mediumship so far in the show. Can you tell us about your guide or guides? Do you have one or many, and how do you work with that or them?
I have an interesting story for you when it comes to that. When it comes to, like I said, I've been doing this since I was a kid. I know nothing else other than the guidance that I have here. And there's one in particular that's very, very strong here. It's more like a father type figure. And I remember growing up, my mother was a very young mother. She had, she had a lot going on at that time. And my guides really stepped in as that second set of parents here. My dad was in and out of jail. He was doing a lot of crazy things. I mean, they were both young parents. And I remember my guide, one of my guides stepping in and being that parental role here and reminding me your mother's not mad at you because of this here. She's, this is what's going on with her. And they would explain the adult ways here and kind of mentoring me and guiding me and being that father, that I guess that parent role there to keep me in and out of trouble, having me look at the lessons for what they are. And I'm going to fast forward here a little bit. I ended up doing a lot of those events where there's a bunch of different psychics in a building and you pay to go in there. It's kind of like a psychic event. I did those all over Oregon here in the U.S. when I first started out doing this as a profession. And I remember doing one event in particular where there was a family. It was a mom and her 3 kids, and the mother was very interested in having a reading, but my attention was being called to her daughter, and the daughter was about 7 to 10 years old. And I had asked the mother, I told the mother, I would love to read you. I said, I definitely want to do that. I said, but I'm more interested in reading your daughter. I said, there's something different about her. And she said, okay, yeah, no problem. I said, but I need to speak to her alone. I said, you can have the door open and stand out by the door there so you know that nothing is going on, but I need to speak to her. I said, because she's seeing things, and I was able to tap into her mind and be able to pick up what she was getting. And I was like, you have a very amazing gift. I said, I don't want you to think that you're weird here. I said, but tell me about seeing dead people. And her eyes lit up. She was like, she was completely surprised that somebody understood it or knew what she was going through here. And she was telling me about, the little girl that died of cancer that lived in the house before her. She told me about seeing her dead father who had died of a drug overdose. He would come to her and sit with her at night and kind of, take care of her. And then she stops in mid-sentence. And I get goosebumps because I was like, her face just changed. And she was looking right behind me. And I got scared. I'm not going to lie. And I looked at her and I was like, what are you looking at? And she was like, I'm looking at the 3 angels that are standing behind you. She goes, I know how you know so much about people. And I said, how? And she said, because your angels tell you what to tell me. That's the first glimpse that I ever had as far as like being able to hear or see my guides from somebody else. Because again, like I said, to me, it's just having that voice or that extra presence around here, and to have this little girl tap in that I've never, ever met before, knowing that she has ability to be able to look at me and tell me exactly what she saw, it just blew my mind.
That is an amazing story. That's absolutely fascinating to hear that. I had goosebumps on the back of my neck when you were telling that.
She scared me. This is not like dramatic, like with her. She didn't do this intentionally. She had no idea. And for her to stop, I'm telling you, we were talking, having a good time. She got really, really comfortable with me. And she just stopped mid-sentence and looked behind me. And I'm telling you, I felt her. I was like, what are you looking at? And just goosebumps everywhere.
Amazing. Well, that's a fantastic story. Well, we're gonna take a break now. Okay. We're having a fantastic chat here with Chris Medina, psychic medium. Very much looking forward to hearing more stories from Chris in part 2, where we'll hear about his take on the afterlife and much more. So we'll see you after this. Hi, hope you're enjoying the show today. Now, we have a brand new horoscope email you can subscribe to at psychic.co.uk. All you have to do is wait for the pop-up to show on the website and then enter your email and star sign. And every Sunday night we'll email you a free horoscope for the week ahead. Now, you can dive in one step further if you wish and take a look at our Horoscope Plus memberships. This is your weekly horoscope plus a lot more. There are 3 memberships to choose from, and we've covered all budgets, we feel. So the Robin membership gives you private, exclusive access to a more detailed horoscope on the member horoscope pages at the website, and a chance to win a psychic reading via Zoom each month. And you'll get a free access code as well to the taster version of our amazing video tarot course with Nikki Allen, 10-Hour Tarot. Now, this membership is just £1.99 per month, and you can cancel it anytime you like. There's a ton of stuff in there for such a small amount of money, so much value. The next membership we've got is the Feather membership. It's a step up from there, and it's just £5.99 per month, and you can also cancel anytime for that one too. Now, as a Feather member, you'll get a much more detailed, in-depth horoscope than the Robin membership horoscope. And on that Feather member horoscope page on the website, you'll get exclusive access to that, with over 1,000 words of horoscope broken down into 3 sections. That's including romance, work and family. It really will give you a fantastic insight into the week ahead every single week. You'll also get our truly amazing astrology video. That's thrown in for free as well, which is 30 minutes of fantastic content on astrology. And as with the Robin membership, you'll also get a chance to win a psychic reading via Zoom every month too. So that's wonderful value in there as well for $5.99 a month for the Feather membership. And the final membership is the Angel member. That's the top level membership to access on the site. That gives you some amazing stuff, and all that info is on the website. Just head to psychic.co.uk/membership and take a look at which one will suit you. We'll put the link in the show notes of this podcast down below for you, so you can just click there and check them all out there. You can also check out the horoscope page and have a little sneak peek at what the Robin members are getting there already. That's at psychic.co.uk/horoscope. Right, now back to the show. Welcome back to part 2 of Psychic Social and our chat with psychic medium Chris Medina. Now, before the break, we were hearing some really interesting stories from Chris about his psychic journey so far and the things that he's experienced. Well, our next question for Chris was, can you tell us more about the psychic services that you're currently providing?
Yeah, absolutely. The type of services that I provide, I always tell people, I always give them a quick little disclaimer. I always tell them that for the first couple minutes of the reading, I'm going to go in and give you what I'm getting directly from my guides, things that you need to hear. And what I mean by that is, yes, I want to be able to provide a great psychic reading and tell you all this great futuristic stuff that's coming into play, and also dip into your past lives and tell you more about that. But first things first, in order to have a bright future, or in order to really achieve the things that you want to achieve, first things first, let's figure out what's standing in your way and blocking you from achieving that there. And what I usually do, like I said, is I spend that 6 minutes kind of going in and reading people right off the bat here. And all I ask is for a picture. I tell them, do not tell me anything. Just if it's wrong, definitely jump in and tell me that I'm off or it's wrong. But when I do hit stuff, just confirm yes, but do not tell me anything. Because what psychics end up doing is they know they can count on the person that's being read to finish their reading. They'll ask a lot of questions, and before they know it, they've gotten all the information they need to give that person a reading, and they end up manipulating them. So I just tell them to be quiet for the first 6 minutes and let me go in and tell you about yourself and what I see as far as blocking you, and we'll work from there. So I usually, like I said, the people end up being codependent in relationships, or they'll have issues with trauma, or maybe they've come back here for redemption, and their soul is seeking evolution, or to ascend here. Maybe they're still bringing in a lot of the past life energy that's blocking them and preventing them from moving forward. So I like to go in there and kind of acknowledge what's going on there, and then we'll talk about all the good stuff here. Because again, what ends up happening is psychics will tell you, oh, in about 2-3 years here, you're going to win the lottery, or you're going to find romance and all this other stuff here, knowing that we have to wait 2 to 3 years before this comes into play. Mm-hmm. So again, like I said, I like to go in and give you, again, what's keeping you back, what's preventing you from reaching your destination, your goal here, and what are some of the insecurities that we could work through. And then again, open up the reading to them and let them acknowledge what I'm saying here, because at the end of the day, I don't want to seem grim here, but you're not going to have much of a future if you're in your own way. So that's how I like to do my services. And then at the same time, if there's, anybody from the other side, when I talk about the other side, I'm talking about, ghosts or dead people, spirits that want to come through, then I'll incorporate them. But I always like to start off by telling the person about them before anything else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. That's a great description of your services and everything that you're doing there. Now, we heard a fantastic story from you before the break regarding the little girl seeing dead people. Now, were there any other stories from any of your readings or anything you've experienced in the time you've been a psychic that really kind of stuck with you? So maybe a reading that had a really strong message or a satisfying conclusion, for instance?
Oh, absolutely. When I first started to my guides were really wanting to teach me worldly stuff. For a good majority of the way that I was brought up, I was able to tap into and read the minds of people, read the intentions or the emotions, and find out what's going on, seeing what they were like as a kid and all that good stuff here. Fast forward all the way to about 2007, my guides were really wanting me to know more about worldly stuff, politics, things that think global catastrophes, man-made diseases. And this one gentleman came to me in 2007, 2008 in a dream. He was very, very rude. He'd come in. It sounded like he was speaking to me on a two-way radio. Remember those old radios that people used to record, not podcasts, but radio broadcasts in their basement, and you could hear like a transistor radio. It sounded like like a walkie-talkie kind of. Yep,
like a CB radio kind of thing. Or
yeah. He had come to me and he had said, hello, can you hear me? And I acknowledged him in the dream. I said, yes, I could hear you. He said, great, I'll be back. And so the next night he'd come back and he was talking to me, telling me about all these worldly things. He had mentioned to me that he's going to tell me a lot of different things, that I should have a notebook and a pen or pencil by my bed here to take notes when I wake up, because he's going to be telling me a lot. And I had asked him, why are you coming to me? And he said, you're going to be doing things differently. You're going to be helping the world. You don't realize what you're here to do. He's all, and I'm going to show you. And so he had come to me nightly, and this guy was incredibly rude. He was like a drill sergeant. He would tell me, he saw the notes aren't working. Get yourself an effing tape recorder here, because you're so lazy when you wake up you forget. And so he was taking me like to the CDC, and he was showing me all these man-made diseases. He was telling me about the chemtrails that were out in the skies. He was telling me about the crops that people can't grow, and all these like I used to look at it as conspiracy theory type of conversations that he would have with me. He also introduced me to aliens. And this is going to really, really freak you out. And this is not made up. I'm not trying to be dramatic in any way, shape, or form. But I can tell the difference between somebody hiding in the room, because my kids used to love to joke with me. They used to hide in my room and scare me all the time. I can tell the difference between that. I can also tell the difference between a ghost, in the house, a different type of presence. I woke up one night after this dream that I had with him, and I felt something in my room. And I was looking around. I'm like, where are you? Where are you? And I started, and the doorway, I had my door halfway open because my kids were in the next room, and I liked to have the door open so I could hear them because it was just the three of us living together. Mm-hmm. And I saw something black in the corner of the doorway, kind of in between the wall and the doorway. And I was like, God, that looks darker than a shadow. What is it? And when I started to move my head, I noticed that it moved, and I got to see how tall this thing was. Again, this is not made up. I know this sounds like it's coming from a sci-fi movie, but it is not. This thing was so tall that it had to kind of hunch a little bit over because its head was hitting the ceiling, and it just stood there really, really quiet. I tapped in. I know this sounds crazy. I tapped in and I said, "What are you?" And I knew instantly that it was reading my mind, and I knew that it was fascinated that I can tap in and I could read it that way, whether you want to say telepathically or whatever the case may be. It was very intrigued that I could hear it without it speaking to me. It started to move, and I saw its arms, and its arm, the limb on it was really, really skinny. The only thing I can compare it to is like a broom. The handle of the broom, you know how it's long and skinny. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what I saw was like the limb that was long and skinny. And my guides came to me and said, "You need to look away. It wants to leave." And I responded back. I said, I don't want it to leave. I want to know what it is. And I started to inch my way forward a little bit on the bed. I didn't get up. I just moved to kind of get a better view of it. And this thing, the thing that was standing against the wall, kind of pushed itself up against the wall, looking like it didn't know whether or not I was going to get up and walk towards it. Mm-hmm. And I heard, I know this sounds crazy, I heard "look down." And I looked down at my leg, and I am not kidding you, this was not a dream. Whatever it did to me, it made me look at my leg and made me see my leg being as skinny as its arm was. And I started to freak out, and I rubbed my leg. I was like, "Oh my God." And my guides had told me, no, it's just an illusion. Look, it's gone. And when I looked up, that thing was gone.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it just to kind of reiterate the person that came to me here. This was 2007, 2008. This man came to me religiously for almost a half of a year, a little bit over it, where he was talking to me constantly, showing me all these different things here. Fast forward to 2012, a good friend of mine had reached out to me. I had already moved to Oregon, and she had said, I need you to go pick up this book. And she goes, "Don't ask any questions, go get it." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "What's the name of it?" She's all, "It's called Behold a Pale Horse." And she goes, "I need you to read that. It's going to make sense to you when you read it." And I went to go get it. It was a pain in the ass to go get this book. I had to go all the way to the bookstore to get it. Mm-hmm. They had it locked up with all this satanic Bible and all these really, really weird books there. And they would not let me carry this book to the register. They had to have somebody carry it, take it to the register, and then watch me pay for it. And I just got weirded out. I kept asking them. I was like, "What's going on here?" I said, what's up with this book that it's so secretive?" And they just kind of were brushing me off here. The book was written by a man named William Bill Cooper. He was a conspiracy theorist that ended up getting murdered on his driveway in Arizona. This was a guy that was coming and talking to me. And that person, again, this is my first real introduction into I've always been a medium here, but to be able to really, really hear and really, really follow the direction of a ghost blew my mind. Mm-hmm. It's like nothing I had ever heard of before, nothing I ever witnessed here. I was able to look up some of his sermons or the things speeches that he was giving at different colleges. He used to take tours here. And when I heard his voice and the way that he presented himself here, it sent chills down my spine because that's exactly how he was in the dreams.
So how old were you when you experienced that? You said 2007. What sort of age were you when you saw this being in the corner of your room?
I was 31.
31.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. And you said that this being visited you for sort of about 6-month period after that. Is that right?
Yeah,
Is that
like
correct?
on and off for about 6 months.
Yeah, and when the being came back, what happened? Was it a similar sort of thing or experience, or some
No,
other
it was
things happened?
the alien thing only came that one time.
Right.
Bill Cooper would come for almost 6 months here.
Oh, I
But
see.
the
Right.
yeah, I again, I know it sounds crazy here. I don't know what your belief system is here, but to me it was not a ghost. It was not like
Mhm.
it wasn't like a spirit that I'm used to seeing or feeling. I know the difference between good and bad. This thing was extremely intelligent. I don't know how else to put it here, but I saw that just that one time.
Hmm. Wow, fascinating. Very, very interesting. Well, can we move on to the next question now? Can you tell the listeners any sort of funny stories from any of your readings that you've done over the years?
Yeah, I people always make the mistake. I love when I hear other mediums on television shows talk about how they get their medium stuff, and they always attribute the person that dies as like getting their wings and ascending to heaven, and they're good people automatically. And I remember this woman. I used to do readings, and I don't do them anymore, in my own home. And I used to, this is when I was living in Oregon. I wasn't, I was just starting out here. So I would have a lot of my clients meet me at the house. And this woman came in, and the way that I do my medium readings is very specific. I don't usually incorporate the spirit into the reading until I know for sure that it belongs to the person that I'm reading. Because whenever I open that side, there's a flood of different energies that come in here. It's almost like a moth to a light where they know that I'm on and they want to communicate. So I usually just sit back and listen to what they're telling me before I bring them in. And I remember this man coming to me while I was reading this woman. It was his daughter. I was reading his daughter, and she was asking me about family stuff here. Do I know where this is at before he died, and all this other stuff, and asking me to make connection with him. And this man came through, and he was yelling. He said, "Gosh," he said, "God damn it. F that." He's all, "I can't believe this effing bee is making a big deal out of this again. I told her to mind her own business, and this and that here. Now she's got me talking to this." He called me a faggot, and saying that he would never ever talk to anybody like me here. The only reason why he's talking to me is because his daughter's here. And so I asked her, I said, "I need to ask you something." I said, "Because this person is not leaving me alone here." I said, "I think this is your father." I said, "But was your father racist before, when he was alive?" And she said, "Extremely racist." And I said, "What was his stance against gay people?" And she said, "He hated them." I said, "Well, your father's here, and he's listening to this, and he wants you to mind your business, and he told you not to worry about that stuff."
Right.
And yeah, it was crazy.
That's good. Yeah. Well, okay. We're going to move on now to our next question for you, Chris. We want to know, have you carried out any stage or platform work in the past, or have you done any readings for parties or anything similar?
Yeah, my clientele is very diverse. I have a lot of celebrity clientele, a lot of reality TV stars, people that are in the industry. I've been on Hollywood Today Live with Ross Matthews. I've done the Soho House in Los Angeles, in New York. I've done Atlanta and Company. I've done a lot of different radio shows, different podcasts. Yeah, you name it, I've done it.
Okay, great. What sort of celebrities have you read for or worked with?
I've read for Ross Matthews. I've read for Sonia Morgan. I've read for, who else have I read for? Mainly a good majority of reality TV stars right now. It's really hard to get a hold of the bigger name celebrities here because there's a lot of red tape you have to go through.
Sure.
And I also find too that when it comes to those type of celebrities, whenever I give them a reading here, it's difficult for them to let go because they're not used to having somebody read them on a personal level that knows things about them. So they're very hesitant. They don't want a lot of things to get out.
Right. Okay.
But I've done a lot of publications. I did an article for Cosmo. They had me, break down relationships and get my vision on that sort of thing here. Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff.
Sounds great. Great stuff. Well, our next question for Chris was, what are your thoughts about the afterlife through your mediumship experiences so far in your life? And what do you think happens when we leave Earth?
In my experience, there's 3 different things that happen. You either you pass on, and if it's a horrible death or the soul's not ready to let go, that's what we have is the people that linger around here. They're not so much trapped on earth here as they don't want to let go. They don't want to move on here. So that's one way. The second way is, and I know this sounds crazy here, I don't know what people's belief system is here, but usually they come back as redemption. The soul ends up dying and ends up coming back and being reborn into another body here. I have a really interesting story when it comes to that. I'll make it really short here. When I was first doing my tours and doing the events here, I did Comic-Con in Oregon, and there was a young kid that came to see me. He was about 18 years old at the time, and it was the last person that came to see me at the end of my shift. I was getting ready to pack up. I had packed my table up, getting ready to leave, and this kid came around the corner and he asked me. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I'm a psychic." He goes, "So you give psychic readings?" And I said, "Yes." My guides, for whatever reason, wanted me to read him. And he sat down next to me, and this is my first introduction into past lives and reincarnation. And I remember getting glimpses of his life prior to his life now. And this was in the late 60s, 70s, and there was a lot of drug use. There was a lot of music ability too. I saw him playing a guitar, being really good looking here, and also having a relationship with a woman that he was resentful towards for treating her a bad way. And I saw him, being depressed. I saw that the girlfriend died, and he had a hard time with it, and he ended up passing on too. He had died of a drug overdose. And when I saw this kid in front of me, after I got those images, I saw the word redemption over his head. And I had told him, I said, "It's very important, my love, that in this lifetime here, that you do not get involved with drugs or anything that distracts you from your everyday way of thinking here." I said, and you have to understand something. This is heavy duty information to give somebody, especially a kid at that age here. I didn't want to go overboard and overextend myself and scare him. But I tapped in. I said, I go, "You have to have an extreme amount of musical ability here." I said, "And there's something wrong with your ear." I said, "They brought you back here." I said, "But you have limitations." I said, "Your body isn't the way that it used to be here." I said, "You have issues with the way that you look." I said, like looking a little bit. He wasn't gay, but his body was very, on the smaller side here. And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm not comfortable with it." He's, "I just feel out of it." And he goes, he saw you mentioned my ear. He saw I was born without an ear. He saw I have a prosthetic ear, and he saw I play the guitar. He's, "I'm extremely musical." And I told, so I got all these glimpses here. Well, to make a long story short, him and I became really, really good friends. And I ended up, mentoring him a little bit here, and then things kind of started to shift here, and I wasn't able to tap into him the way that I used to. I couldn't see, I know this sounds a little bit too much here, but I wasn't able to see his future. I kept seeing him walking towards the beach and a bunch of hands covering him, and I remember waking up and talking to him and telling him, I don't have a good feeling. I said, and again, I don't want to scare him with death. I never bring death into a reading here, but I told him, I said, "I can't see your future." I said, "Just be really careful." To make a long story short, fast forward a couple months forward here, he ended up moving away, and he ended up having to go to rehab, and having to, it was for like mental health and all this stuff here. And I was like, okay, or whatever. And I knew that I wasn't going to see him again. He ended up dying about a year ago. And that was, to me, when you talk about the afterlife here, people don't realize that a good majority of the time that when we're here on earth, when we come back here, a good majority of us are old souls. We come back here for redemption or to finish what we didn't complete in the past life here. And a lot of what we're working through stems from that from memories of the past here. And it's almost like if you stop and think about it, it's a very karmic type thing here. So a good majority, like I said, they'll pass on and they'll come back and they'll have to repeat the lessons here. Or the last thing is that they'll pass on and they're done. They don't come back. They're to me, again, what I see whenever I get these types of readings, I see a light up in the sky. So this tells me that they've ascended. That for whatever reason, when I made connection with that, they have the ability or the opportunity to come back. A good majority of the time, they stay there. So those are the three things that I've noticed when it comes to medium work, or how the different levels of death come up. Does that make sense?
It definitely does, and I'm a definite believer in reincarnation and in what you've just explained as well about being here to learn certain lessons, and then when you pass on, if you haven't learned lessons that you need to learn, you come back and you learn some more. Exactly. I'm definitely starting to be a believer in that. And I've always believed in reincarnation, even before we started Psychic Social. But yeah, I definitely agree with all that stuff you said. Well, thank you very much for that. Well, we're coming towards the end of the show now. We'd just like to sort of step away from the psychic world, if we can, for now, and find out a bit more about what interests you at the moment. So can you tell us what was the last book you read, or sort of box set you watched on Netflix or another platform like that?
Oh my gosh, I don't do a lot of reading. The last book I actually read as I started to go through that Behold a Pale Horse book here, but I watch a lot of television shows, and you're going to crack up because this is the way that I decompress. After every day, I do a lot of readings. Like I said, I do medium readings, the psychic readings, and I always tell my clients, and this is something that I practice, is disconnecting, reclaiming your energy, getting rid of any energy that you've picked up or accumulated throughout the day. So my way of unwinding before I go to bed is watching crime shows like Forensic Files, Law and Order, SVU.
Okay. Right, okay. Yeah, so this is the real life stuff you're talking about, is that right?
For sure.
Right, okay. I like that stuff sometimes as well. Yeah, I like that. Okay, well, that's great, Chris. Thank you very much. Now, finally, can you tell the listeners about your website, your web address, and your social media, etc.? And do you have anything that you're currently selling? If you do, books, courses, anything like that, can you tell the Psychic Social listeners about that?
Yeah, for sure. You can book a reading. If anybody's interested in a reading, you could book a half an hour session or an hour session. Visit chrismedina.guide. That's chrismedina.guide. You have the option of signing up for a half-hour session or an hour-long session. Let me just explain something really fast. When it comes to what I do and the readings that I give, I know there's a lot of people that are very time watching, and they want to cut you off here. My readings usually last anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, and it's at that flat rate. I'm not comfortable cutting people off when we're talking about huge life lessons here. So if you're interested in a reading, I definitely recommend signing up for the half-hour session. Keep in mind it's going to go over here, and if you need more time, then we can discuss it there, and we can jump into the hour-long session. But yeah, feel free to visit chrismedina.guide if you want to get a feel for who I am, what I look like, what my vibe is. I'm all over social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Psychic Chris M. At Psychic Chris M. Take a look at me, see if I'm somebody that you want to get a reading from, get my vibe, fill me out. And I also have my own podcast, which is called In Your Head. It's currently on hiatus right now. It's called In Your Head with Chris Medina. I am getting ready to record a couple new episodes. I've kind of taken a little bit of a 2-month hiatus to kind of help people out when it comes to the pandemic and all this stuff here. But I'm going to be back on the mic, giving people what they need. And my show is all about empowerment. It's all about life lessons. I incorporate a lot of humor and a lot of my own personal stuff onto it. It's not for everybody. I can be very direct and be very bold when it comes to that there, but that's how I want people to understand how the psychic stuff works. I really made it a mission in this lifetime here to come back and change the game here and let people know that it's not just smoke and mirrors. It's not movie stuff. What I do is completely real, and I'm helping people heal and evolve their souls to overcome the lessons that they need to overcome in this lifetime. So
great.
That's where you can find.
Great. That's great. Thank you very much for that. And what I'll do is I'll put links to your website and all your social media and everything else in the show notes on our website as well. So everyone can have a click on that there and go through to all your links and your website. Well, it's been great to have you on Psychic Social today, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all these great stories with us and the listeners on here. We'd like to just say take care and stay safe and well in these current times, and we look forward to speaking with you again very soon.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out and thinking of me. I would love to do this again. Let me know when you guys are down to do it. I'd love to come back, but thank you so much for the opportunity. God bless. Take care.
Great. We would love to do that too. Thank you, Chris, and take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on Psychic Social from psychic.co.uk, the spiritual home of psychics.